So here we go. First of all, we got a quiz on recursive, and by doing a little bit of like problems from today's homework, the new stuff that we're about to do, we'll also be reviewing a little bit for this quiz. But the new stuff for today is just on graphing these recursive formulas. So I'm going to teach you the new stuff first before the quiz, because some of you are going to finish a quiz in 5 minutes, and some of you will take 25 minutes. You don't have to wait for them that way. Okay, so we're new stuff first. This is not stuff that's being tested on right now, but it'll help jog your memory. All right, here we go. First of all, here is a set of 3 points. I'd like you to quick make a sketch on your paper, just a sketch of where those would be, 0, 1, 1, 4, and 2, 7. And figure out the slope. And the write a recursive formula part can be really confusing until I give you a little more guidance. So I'm going to do that guidance part while you're graphing it. All right. Would you agree that when we normally see a sequence, we see it like this, 2 and then plus 4 makes 6, plus 4 makes 10, dot, dot, dot. That's the way we normally give them to you, right? Well, we just gave you a sequence, but we wrote it differently. We wrote it in graph form. Can anybody take this over here and tell me what little simple sequence it would look like that? It's really pretty simple. Toy, what do you think? Changing your mind? All right. Who's got an idea? It's as simple as you think. Yes. Yes. It's 1, 4, 7. Why aren't the 0, 1, and 2 included in that? They kind of are. You're just not thinking of it right if you don't see it. Yes. Exactly. This is like, those numbers are like u sub 0 for the 0 here, and u sub 1 for the 1 here, and u sub 2 for the 2. So remember, these little numbers right here, those are the n numbers. You know, when we say u sub n is equal to blah, 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 it's that number right there. That's the n. So the moral of the story is that x's are really the n's. The little number that's a sub number underneath the u. And the y's are really the answers to that, which are really what? The outputs, yes, and they're the u sub n's. When you actually figure out a u sub n, it becomes a number. So the x is the n's and the y's is the u sub n's. These guys right here are the u sub n's. They are the, remember u sub n really means any given term. Any term. Well, these are the terms right here. All right, so that means that if I want to write a recursive sequence for something like this, I just have to rewrite it like a normal sequence I'm used to, and then just write it like normal. The only thing is I don't get to pick what to start with. Normally I say you can pick anything you want, u sub 0 or u sub 1 or like the year it's in, like 1999 or something. But in this case, we're forced to use u sub 0. So it's u sub 0 equals 1. And that comes right from this. And then u sub n equals u sub n minus 1. That's the way you always start a formula, right? And then we say what happens each time. And that's the slope. See, if I graph these, 0, 1, 1, and 4, the slope that goes from here to here, that's a slope of 3. And it also happens to be what happens each time, that it adds 3 each time. And then the last thing is where n is greater than or equal to, in this case, what? 1, because it's always 1 bigger than that is. So this has to be a 1. All right. Now, is this sequence increasing or decreasing? Increasing. And if it's increasing, is it increasing at a linear rate or an exponential rate? A linear rate, because it's going up by 3 every time. It's not exponential. All right, let's look at this one. This time it's got a lot of directions there just because I wanted to make it the same as last time, but why don't you, instead of graphing and everything, why don't you just write me the 3 terms with a dot, 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 and then tell me the right way to write the formula for it. I'll pause while you do that. If you knew what you were doing. You wrote 6, 12, 24, dot, dot, dot. And then you maybe even put this. U sub 1 is this one. U sub 2 is that one. U sub 3 is that one. That way you got all your numbers represented. You know, the 1 and the 2 and the 3 off the chart. All right there. And then whoopee, lively marker. 6 and the 12 and the 24 are right there. So there's all my numbers. And now I can write a formula. U sub 1 equals 6. Couldn't I have started with U sub 0? No, because it told me it was a 1 right there. And U sub n was U sub n minus 1. And then what do I do each time? Multiply by what? And I agree. Instead of multiplying by 2, let's say 1 plus 1. That way, when they ask what percent increase is it, you won't say 200% because that would be wrong. What percent increase is it? 100%, because that's the increase. All right, and then this is where n is greater than or equal to what? 2, because it's always 1 bigger than that. Because in the formula, the first term cannot be determined, and therefore we have to move on to the second term. And this, we start with U sub 1, the second term is a 2. All right. So, one more. This one. Don't graph it or anything, just figure out the formula for it. Okay, I'll call on different people. Who wants to do the first part? How do you start the formula? Raise your hand. Somebody start it off for me. Yes. Reading. U sub 0 equals 2. Couldn't you start it with U sub 1? Nope. Because it forces you with that 0 right there. AK, what's next? So you add 5 each time. Excellent. Okay. Now what? I'm missing something. I'd lose half a point on the test. Yes. Yes, notice that that's 0, so that needs to be 1 bigger than the other one. All right. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Good. Then, one last thing I'd like you to do on your calculator. I'm going to give you a sequence. 2 of them. I want you to put 1 on the U sub line, 3, 6, 9, dot, 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 and 1 on the V sub line, 3, 6, 12, dot, dot, dot. And so that way, if they're both in your calculator, you'll be able to compare these two sequences, and you'll be able to show me how much different they are at the 10th term. Okay, here's how it should have looked. You got U sub n minus 1 plus 3. It starts with 3. And then the next line says V sub n minus 1 times 2. And it starts with a 3. And then if you did it all right, then when you hit go to table, and you look for the U sub 1 as my first term. So if I want the 10th term, it's simple. It's just U sub 10. Gotta be careful though. Remember, if you start with a real world problem, you should be starting with U sub 0. But I didn't give you any context for this, and I just am going to ask for like the 10th term. If I'm asking for a certain term, then it's probably best to just start with U sub 1. Do you see the difference? 30 compared to 15, 36. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Good. If you did something wrong and you want me to help you before we start the quiz, I'll look at your calculator and help you figure out what's wrong. All right. The most asked question on the homework last night was this one where it said like 1.2 and then it had a blank and you're supposed to like write a percent in there. And then it would say like 0.75 and give you a blank. Well, here's what I was hoping you'd think of. That 1.2 is like, we would break that always into the 1 plus or minus thing, right? And this would be 1 plus 0.2, which would mean a 20% increase. And this one would be broken into 1 minus 0.25. Notice not 0.75. And so that would be a 25% decrease, which you can sometimes put in parentheses or just put a minus in front of it. So it's a decrease of 25%. Or you could say 25% decay. You can say it in a word. All right? Any questions about anything else? All right. we'll stop for that for now.